For this fun holiday project, I headed to Walmart and picked up a blank outdoor rug for around $7. First, I used a cereal bowl, placed it in each corner of the rug, and traced a semicircle with a chalk marker. Then, on the shorter ends, I used a ruler to measure in 1 inch and drew a straight line connecting the two semicircles, and then repeated it for the other side. Next, I lined the lid of a large casserole dish to the 1 inch mark and traced the curve from the handle to the side. Next, I placed a cutting mat under the rug and used a box cutter to cut out the design. Then I used scissors to trim away any excess to make the edges look sharp and clean. Once the rug was cut and ready, I flipped it over and used a ruler and paint marker to measure 1 inch in from all of the sides and traced the shape of the rug to make a border. I used some painter's tape to tape inside the border, then headed outside and spray painted the border in a dark red color, making sure to really saturate the color. Once the paint was dry, I removed the tape, then used more painter's tape to tape the painted border. I then used a beige spray paint to paint the large inner portion and then allowed it to fully dry. Next, I used my Cricut cutting machine to cut out various stencils in the shapes of stars, a gingerbread, a Santa, Christmas tree, and a mitten. If you don't have a Cricut or a cutting machine, you can print out these shapes on cardstock and cut them out with an X-Acto knife. Next, I laid the stencils onto the rug and arranged them to make sure that I liked the order and placement, then began working on the first stencil, which was the Santa Claus. I added a white palm to the top of his hat, filled in his beard and the rest of his hat, added a big red nose followed by some eyes and a mouth. I made sure to really saturate every section to make sure that the color was very opaque and filled in. I continued to add the stencils to the rug, spacing them out evenly and painting a background for each. I went back in for each of them with a second coat of paint to really make sure that they were filled in. Once the backgrounds for each shape were dry, I went back in and decorated them. For the gingerbread man, I added eyes, a mouth, and little details on the arms and legs, as well as some gumdrop buttons. For one of the stars, I added lines and dots to look like a snowflake, and for the mitten, I added white dots all the way around the upper portion and green accents on the cuff. For the Christmas tree, I added a string of colorful lights, and for the last star, I added white frosting and sprinkles. Once the paint dried overnight, I finished it off with a couple coats of Flex Seal rubber spray to make it durable and waterproof. I'm absolutely obsessed with how this Christmas cookie tray outdoor rug turned out, and it might be in my top 5 favorite DIYs I've ever done.
I picked up a coir doormat at IKEA. These are inexpensive and so much fun to customize. The first thing I want to do is make a template, and I'm going to do that with freezer paper. I want to make sure that the shiny side is facing down toward the doormat and the paper side is facing up. Once I have the main pieces drawn out, I'm going to cut them. Using an iron on medium heat, I can just iron over this freezer paper and it's going to temporarily stick to the doormat. Just make sure that the shiny side is facing down. I'm starting with really basic craft paint and a really hard bristled stencil brush. I'm repeating the same process for Santa's beard using a white acrylic paint. Now I'm gonna pull off these top little pieces here. I'm gonna paint this black. The rest of this I'm going to freehand. I'm gonna add the white trim of Santa's hat, some eyebrows, eyes, nose, and mouth. I have made a number of doormats using this technique. There is no need to seal it. This is gonna hold up really well and it looks so cute.
All right, I'm starting out with a plain doormat. I am flipping it to the back side. I'm gonna take a Sharpie and I'm gonna make a rough outline and then I'm gonna cut out the shape. It goes through pretty easily. So now that I have it flipped over, I'm gonna take a piece of chalk and I'm going to roughly draw in some outlines. Now I'm just gonna take some white acrylic paint and I'm gonna go over the outlines I made with the chalk. I'm gonna go back and add some details, some doors and windows and a roof line. And maybe we'll add a couple little berries to it, a little red bow at the top. I'm gonna add a couple little bushes.
First, grab a piece of scrap wood. Next, grab some Vaseline and apply it to the wood. You can use a paintbrush or your finger to do this. After that, add whatever color of paint you want on top of the Vaseline. Let the paint dry for at least half an hour to achieve the crackle effect and wipe it away with a paper towel. You can also use sandpaper depending on the look you're going for. If the paint looks more chipped than you'd like, you can always touch it up until you're satisfied with the ratio. Next, grab a pack of wax paper. Using a piece or two of printer paper or cardstock, cut down the wax paper to size and tape it to the printer paper. This will allow it to go through your printer without getting stuck. Decide what saying and font you want and reverse the letters. After that, load your wax paper into an inkjet printer and print. Cut out your letters and lay them out, ink side down, taping them in place. Using a spoon, rub the ink onto the board. Peel away your letters and you will have a stencil to work from. Trace the letters with paint. After that, add a design if desired. This sign is perfect to dress up your mantle, a blank wall, or a shelf that needs a festive touch.
You're going to take your large round ornament. So go ahead and use a foam brush like I'm using now with black chalk paint. You're going to take your sticker, your vinyl decal, stencil, cutout, whatever you choose. I'm going to grab a squeegee and then just make sure that my decal's nice and placed on the transfer tape. I flip it upside down to get the backing off, and then you can place it wherever you'd like. And then you can go ahead and peel the transfer tape back off. I'm just going to take some glue or Mod Podge and then just start sprinkling the glitter on like I'm doing. And that will give you that snowflake look all around your board. We're going to add some greenery at the top of your board, and if you have any red or green accent pieces you want to add, you can go ahead and do that with the greenery like I'm doing.
Okay, and here you have it. This is the finished product.
And I'm just going to draw around it in a circle. And I'm just going to freehand this, and you can do this exactly the same way. This is my gnome's nose, in case you're wondering what on earth I'm doing. And let's have our hat kind of wobbling over his nose there. Now I'm going to draw his beard. Next part I want to do is I'm going to put the top of his hat. I'm going to do my background first. I'm going to start working on his beard. Why don't we give him some red to wear today? I'll put a little bit of a flesh tone in there. For his nose, I'm going to put a little bit of my red here, and then I've got my flesh tone. There we go. So there's Mr. Gnome's first bit of his nose. I'm going to start filling in the top part of the hat first. So I'm now going to start filling in the hat. I'm just going to sketch out very roughly some stripes. So here we go. We're going to put our first stripe. So we're going to just add a little bit of a slightly darker hue, a slightly darker colour here, just where there would be shadow. I'm going to continue up the hat, just adding those little bits of shadows here and there, which I'm just going to blend in. And now it's time to bring some life to Mr. Gnome's beard. And now we're going to finish off our nose, paint around his nose, just to highlight him. I'm pretty thrilled the way that Gnomeo here turned out.
We're going to get started right away with this faux cedar board. You're just going to paint it white as the first step. And then you cover the sides too, of course. We're going to do a little wash. The paint I'm using is, again, just a craft paint. I'm going to put a little bit on my brush, and then I'm going to put a little bit of water on there to get it wet. And we're going to run it along the edges of here. So we want to give it kind of a rounded look, and we're going to darken the edges to do that. We're going to come in with just a rag, kind of wipe that off and blend it in. So I'm taking, again, just the paint and again the water, and we're going to make lines starting in the edge and coming across. You can also build up areas like imperfections. A lot of time birch trees have imperfections on the side. Okay, so I made a bunch. Now the next step is to just screw this in. I have these boards running along the bottom. So let me just flip this over. So the drywall screws go in really nice without pre-drilling just because they're a coarse thread. You can see I also added a wire across to hang it. So now we're gonna flip it over and I'm gonna write my saying. So I'm just gonna freehand this. So in order for you to read this, you kind of have to fill in a bit. Now we are going to hang it up on the wall. You could add like a big garland over it. And I think that also looks really festive and cute.
I am just giving the edges of this board a dark finish. Now I'm just taking this is just like a chalk style paint, and I am just going to kind of do a dry brush technique. We are going to do our lettering. We are going to be using this typesetting stamp set. You just want to lay out your letters. This is called a thin mount. So I'm just going to lay it down, and then you can see I'm just going to press down to pick up my stamps. And now they're all ready for me. We have an ink pad here. This is a Decor ink. So now we're just going to take our ink pad and we're just going to stamp the back side of my letters. I'm going to flip it over. Again, going to line it up. Just want to kind of press over each letter. Look at that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the actual faux barnwood look with a barnwood plank stamp set. And we're gonna use paint for this part. And you just want to apply it to your plank. And I'm just gonna start right in the middle here, going all the way to the edge. Look at that, isn't that awesome? I'm gonna actually do a knot hole, you guys, because I see the perfect spot. Look at these knot holes. Look at that, really cool. This is kind of mimics the board edge and some nail holes. Again, just adding some more realism to my board. For this part, we're using a piece of the Wreath Builders Classic stamp set. Put one right here at the top. Just press it down and just do that top section, just like that. Using the end of the paintbrush, and I am just going to dot in some of these berries that are on here. All right, so let me just hold this up now so you guys can see it in all its glory. What do you think? Isn't it awesome? So stinking easy. We will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.